Hey YouTube, I did a video on substituting XL and Legendary Pokemon in the Great League, so check out that video either above or below. But now I wanted to do it for Ultra League. The problem is, Great League you have like, I don't know, 10 to 15 Pokemon that are Legendary or XL that need to be substituted. When you get to Ultra League, I kind of already went over this in one video. Registeel, Steelix, Cobalion, Cresselia, Regirock, against Steelix again, Zygarde, Giratina, Regirock, Swampert. So your first one is at rank 11, which is a community day Pokemon needing Hydro Cannon, Virizion, Greedent, Tapu Fini, Auroras. So again, Auroras is again one of the first ones that doesn't need XL. Double, Mandibuzz, Poliwrath XL, Pidgeot, Gliscor. So we're down to Gliscor as the third non-XL or non-legendary Pokemon for the Ultra League out of the top 22, which makes this very, very, very difficult to find substitutes for every single one of these Pokemon. So I don't even know if I can find substitutes for every one of these Pokemon. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you my best analysis, and you can just go down to, so for example, for Registeel, all you need to do is go down to similar Pokemon, and it'll give you options here. However, Regirock, Galarian Stunfisk, Steelix, Regice, Regirock, Ferrothorn, and Cobalion are all legendary or XL Pokemon. So right off the bat, it's like you can't really replace what Registeel does. And even just looking up Steel, that's not XL. You're getting down to like Escav, Genesect, that just play completely different aspects. So like, I'm going to say right now, you cannot replace what Registeel does in the Ultra League. So for some of these, you will just have the answer is, sorry, can't do it. Steelix is, I think, one that you can do. The thing about Steelix is what you give up is the bulk in the typing. And see, they're recommending Stunfisk and Registeel and stuff like that and Ferrothorn. So they're recommending Steels. I'm going to take it from two perspectives. Flygon's an interesting one. But Flygon wouldn't even be my replacement. My replacement, just because it is a Dragon Tail Breaking Swipe, would be Dragonite. Because when you think about it, what is the role of Steelix here? You're doing two things with Steelix. You have the moveset, and then you have the sort of typing and outcome and bulk. So if you want to try just to replace this from a bulk perspective, but the problem is you're not going to get a ton of ground or steel that have the bulk as a non-XL that you would get as from Steelix. So not anything there. And then again, the steals, everything is, as I mentioned, nothing is tanky enough. So if you're trying to replace it from a tank perspective, I don't think you can do it. But you can replace it from a move perspective. And I'm going straight to Dragonite. Non-legendary, non-XL, rank 33. And basically why I would replace it with Dragonite is, although again, you're going to have different weaknesses. You're going to be weak to Fairy here. You're going to be weak to Ice here that you would not have with Steelix. But its moveset basically does the same thing. You have Dragon Breath and Dragon Claw, so those are your sort of fast moves. You get Stab on Dragonite, so it's harder hitting. And then Earthquake is basically your coverage move that is very, very rarely used, but is your coverage move for steals. But Superpower is one that you can cover there. And again, Earthquake can cover water Pokemon, like Tapu Fini, water fairy Pokemon that Superpower cannot. So that's sort of the trade back. Again, it's going to be very, very tough to do a 1-for-1 comparison. But if you don't have a Steelix, but you want sort of the similar-ish outcome, I personally would go with Dragonite. In terms of Cobalion, and Virizion's probably at 12, I'm gonna loop them together because I think you can substitute. Basically, what these Pokemon are counter users with either a grass move or a flyer coverage. So this is why in here you're getting a lot of other fighters, right? Double, Poliwrath, Hitmonlee is kind of like, no, don't use Hitmonlee. And then Virizion, you probably get some fighters with some grass covers. Cobalion, Chestnut. And then, so I am actually going to think about Chestnut if it's a non-XL. It is non-XL. So Chestnut kind of covers, to a certain extent, the same sort of thing. You have the same typing as Virizion, grass fighting. So again, it's not a one-for-one comparison because you have one which is steel and one with is grass and fighting. So in terms of the grass fighting comparison, this is very, very close. And in terms of the output, also very close. You have the superpower charge move with frenzy plant. So if you're running Virizion with double kick, leaf blade, and sacred sword, vine whip, frenzy plant, superpower is pretty close in comparison. So if you want a Virizion, you need to replace it with Chestnut. Of course, Chestnut needs the frenzy plant, which is a community move, so you're already limited in that. In terms of Cobalion, again, a double kick user that is also steel. Like, they're going to recommend Lucario because theoretically, yes, a fighter with steel, and you have a fighting fast move. You can either use like a nuke, or like you can use like close combat. So it's running recommended, Power Punch and Shadow Ball, but it also has access to like close combat. So if you wanted to use this as a sort of fighter steel that has a fighting fast move with a fighting move plus a coverage move, close combat Shadow Ball would not be the worst case scenario. But again, the only thing you need to think about is in terms of typing they align. In terms of sort of the bulk, Lucario is much, much classier. But in a pinch, if you need to replace it, sure, you can go there. So that I would say Lucario for Cobalion and Chestnut for Virizion. Cresselia was already insane to try and replace in Great League. I can't imagine there's anything that's going to be similar in Ultra League that is non-XL. And that's the thing. These are all either legendary Pokemon, Deoxys, Mewtwo, or XL Pokemon in Lugia, Gristeli's XL, Greedent's XL, Steelix's XL. There really is no, I'm not even going to try to replace Cresselia. In terms of like psychic Pokemon, these are all legendaries. You're going XL, Slowbro, XL, and then you're down to Gallade. And Gallade is not even close to a replacement of Cresselia to have that bulk from a legendary Pokemon. So maybe you can think about it from a Ghost perspective. If there's any non-Ghost XLs, no. Gengar, no. You can't. You cannot replace Cresselia in the Ultra League, unfortunately. Try to think of it again. Something that is bulky, has grass cover plus fairy plus. I don't think you can. So I'm not even going to try and replace that one. Regirock is, I was going to say Credillia, but Credillia is XL. A lot of these are XL. So it's kind of like Registeel. You cannot really replace it with a non-XL Pokemon. Aurorus is an interesting one. Perhaps Aurorus because it plays the same. I'm going to say Aurorus, and here's why. It sort of plays the same function in the fact that you're weak to fighting, but you're basically a wall to flying Pokemon, right? Because you have the Stone Edge. The only sort of real there's two drawbacks. One, Regirock is way tankier than Aurorus, and two, Aurorus has no move for steel Pokemon. I ran it the other day. It only has Ice, Weather Ball, and Meteor Beam, which is the moveset you run. So unlike Regirock, which has a Focus Blast for steals, you don't really have that. And Regirock only has that single typing, Rock, so 5 weaknesses. Rock that has a lot of weaknesses. I'm going to see if the Ice adds anything. Probably not. If anything, yeah, it does. It adds a double, because now you're double weak to fighting. You're double weak to steel. There's not a ton of steel. Grass, ground, rock is the same. And then you add water. You add the rock weakness. You add the rock weakness because of the ice. So you pick up you're less tanky, don't have coverage, plus another weakness, plus you're now double weak to like fighting and stuff. So much worse than Regirock, but if you need something to sort of like play in the same realm, same idea of sort of doing well against flyers, that is not the worst replacement. Giratina is going to recommend what? Trevenant, Tapu Fini. So Jellicent. Yeah, sorry. I meant Jellicent when I said Tapu. But Jellicent, Trevenant XLs, Runerigus, Gengar. So Gengar is the only one on this list. But the answer is no, because Giratina plays an interesting role. So Giratina is one of those things that it's bulky, but it also is spammy and bulky enough to kind of deal even with its weaknesses, which Gengar is not. Gengar is too glassy. So you can look at it from a ghost perspective, or you can look at it from a dragon perspective. From a ghost perspective, unfortunately, XL. The sort of most non-XL one here is Trevenant. It's probably only in like the... Trevenant is a good-ish answer here, but that's still like 44, 45. And then you're getting, it's like Gengar, 2 Glassy, Skeletor, 2 Glassy, more XL Pokemon. Maybe from a dragon perspective. But the only... Como is not really, because Giratina is like the ghost aspect, and Como is a fighter dragon. So it's not really the same. I was going to say Dragalge, but Dragalge is also an XL. Haxorus. Haxorus is an interesting one. The problem is it's way too classy. So again, Giratina has always been one in the Ultra League that you cannot really replace. It's either you have it as a safe swap or you don't. Greedent and Dubwool are kind of the same. Normal typings, safe swaps that you can just kind of spam. Milk Tank XL. Yeah, so Snorlax would be. And I've used Snorlax multiple times. And Snorlax is actually a good one. So Snorlax I've used multiple times. And I would use it with Earthquake as well. So thank you for updating that, Poke. You have a Lick. Snorlax is great because it walls ghosts with its normal typing and super effective licks. But you also have Body Spam, which is very real. So that hits decently, not hard because you're Snorlax, but it is spammy enough that you are adding up there. Plus, I'd run it with Earthquake, because if you run it with Body Slam Superpower, you don't have anything for ghosts like Giratina and like Jellicent. But if you run it with Earthquake, you actually have something to cover. So if you do not have a Double or a Miltank or a Greedent, I think Snorlax is your best option to use as that safe swap pivot. Tapu Fini, a fairy, the Azumarill of Ultra League, essentially. Fairy water with electric grass, poison, weakness. They're saying straight up just replace it with just other water Pokemon. I don't know if you can. If I was going to replace it with anything, Slowking, Slowbro, and Blastoise. The problem is there's such a difference between the moveset of those Pokemon and the ones that they just recommended down here in terms of output. Like Blastoise is still XL, and now you're getting pretty low into the slows. Where are the slows? Yeah, it's Slowking. Even with, and those are XLs too. So you can't really, there's no equivalent of that. From a water perspective, if you don't have Tapu, I'm looking at Samurott, because Samurott somewhat plays the same role from this perspective. It is completely different in the fact that like fairy versus what is a bug secondary typing here. Or no, it's actually not a bug secondary. It's just actually pure water, but it has bug type moves. So Tapu Fini is great because it can wall fighters and hit super effective against like darks and dragons. If you're running Samurott, even though it's just a pure water, but the thing is, the second move is a Fury Cutter and Mega Horn, which also gives you that dark coverage because these do super effective. Fury Cutter and Mega Horn do super effective against dark. So from that perspective, having the Hydro Cannon and being able to hit super effective against dark is a stretch. It's a real stretch, but Samurott is actually not a bad one. Obviously, Samurott's just but it's like a realistically a Swampert cover. But if you don't have a Swampert, you can use that. But Tapu, I think if you want to stretch the definition, you can use a Samurott. Mandibuzz at XL, and I'll just cover all the flyers because you have Mandibuzz, Pidgeot, and I think your answer is probably just going to be Charizard. Yeah, they're saying other darks. That's the problem. These are going to say other darks, and then I'm guessing this is going to say Pidgeot's going to say other flyers. but Charizard's got to be one of them. And Charizard would be my recommendation. If you want a Pokemon that, like, what are you getting from a flyer? You're getting flying moves, but also secondary, like a second coverage. So Pidgeot, you're just getting straight flying moves and bulk. And Mandibuzz, you're getting bulk with dark coverage and also flying moves. So basically, if you're going to run a flyer and you don't have these Excel, Charizard is the one. The wing attack buff, blast burn, you need blast burn on it. It basically nukes, doesn't nuke everything, but it threatens even resisted blast burn from like a Shadow Charizard, does an insane amount of damage on the majority of Pokemon. So if you don't have these flyers, I would do that. Look at that, a couple non-excels: Gliscor, Walrein, Gliscopod, Jellicent. Jellicent has been one of the best sort of safe swaps in this meta. It's tanky, it's got good coverage overall, and Hex, Surf, and Shadow Ball is generally a good moveset. It's going to tell you to do other Ghosts or Lapras. Lapras is an interesting one, but my question is, would I really use Lapras as a safe swap? Or actually, even though it has completely different things, I would use Walrein. But we'll check out Lapras because I think from a pure moveset perspective, it's very, very similar, right? Because this has Ice Shard, Surf, Ice Beam. So you have the exact same Surf there, and you have Ice Beam, which Jellicent does have, and now it usually runs Shadow Ball. But it's not bad. It's just that you don't have anything to throw at, like with Surf and Ice Beam, you don't have anything to throw at water type Pokemon, which is why I would actually say Walrein. And even though they play completely different sort of functions, they share an electric weakness. You pick up a fighting weakness here, but you trade that off with not being weak to like Ghost and Dark that Jellicent would be weak to. So in terms of sort of, I don't have Jellicent as a safe swap that is bulking. That Walrein is actually pretty good. It has bulk, it has coverage. Icicle Spear hits pretty good in just all neutral situations, and if it's resisted, Earthquake is a pretty good second move for nerf. So if you do not have a Jellicent and are looking for that like sort of safe swap that isn't a legendary or XL, go with Walrein. Guzzlord is just going to recommend. Guzzlord is probably just going to be Dragonite again. Again, understanding that it's dark, but this is the second time they're recommending Flygon, and I guess Flygon is not. I keep messing up Flygon with Gliscor, but Flygon is the Dragon Flyer. So you know what? Flygon actually may be a good option because it is the Dragon Ground Flyer. That's too many typings. It is the Ground Dragon. I say it's a flyer because it's got fly in the name and it's got wings, but it is a Dragon Ground typing with the moveset of Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, and now this updated move, Scorching Sands. So from a Steelix perspective, actually, I do think Dragonite is the better Steelix answer. But if you want some sort of similar typings with the ground typing, Flygon may not be a bad answer for both Steelix and your Guzzlord here. HItmontop is probably the easiest because you just replace it with Machamp. I like Surfetched a lot in this meta. So Hitmonchan's XL, I believe. Hirayama, Primeape, XL, Toxicroak. Is Toxicroak XL? Basically replace it. There's so many, the thing is there's so many, yeah, Toxicroak XL. There's so many like fighter options in this that you can just like plug and play. I think Machamp is probably the best one, especially if you have Shadow. If you don't have Shadow Machamp, and you want to just, again, very glassy, but Surfetched. It's running Leaf Blade and Night Slash here, but it also can run Close Combat and Brave Bird as nukes. So in terms of like, if you want to replace counter Close Combat, Hitmontop, Surfetch is just the easiest substitute in terms of moveset, just not as tanky. Scrafty. So Scrafty, I'm assuming they're going to say Obstagoon, because it does, yeah, so there's Obstagoon. So it does do a similar role, but it's, and this is why it's recommending, I think it's more of a fighter, and then I'm gonna check Obstagoon in a second. First of all, Obstagoon can be excelled. It doesn't need to be excelled, but it does go up to like level 41 or whatever. My buddy always says there's two different things here between Obstagoon and Scrafty. A lot of people use them interchangeably because, again, counter, counter, a cross chop, power punch, night slash, foul play. So in principle, in terms of just like typing and moveset and output, yes, sure. Dark is, this Obstagoon is basically a Scrafty. However, they play very, very different roles. When you're using Scrafty, you are mostly often using it for its counter power punch fighting with a nice secondary foul play. As opposed to when you're using Obstagoon, you're mostly using it as the dark aspect. You're trying to get that night slash boost and spamming those. So from that perspective, they do sort of play a different role, which is why here you're seeing a lot more other fighter Pokemon, Lucario, Buzzhole, Poliwrath, Machamp, Heracross, Primeape. And when you go to Obstagoon, you're going to see more dark Pokemon. Scrafty, Guzzlord, Galarian Moltres, Malamar, Greninja, right? They do play different roles. So yes, you just might want to, if you want something that's weak to fighting, weak to fairy, same sort of moveset, Obstagoon, sure. But if you actually want more of the fighter role that Scrafty plays, I would recommend any of these, again, XL fighters and stuff like that, but Machamp, Heracross, stuff like that, as a replacement to Scrafty in the fighting role that Scrafty plays. Buzzhole, same sort of thing. You just replace it with those that I just mentioned. Pelipper, I don't see a ton of Pelipper. Pelipper is up to 35, eh? Bait dependent, I know. I ran up against an XL Pelipper the other day. I was going to say like Gyarados. Yeah, these are Gliscor or Gyarados or Charizard, realistically. I would replace it with Charizard, but if you want something that actually has water aspect of it, I would go Gyarados. Both flying water Pokemon. Different movesets completely, but if you want that sort of typing aspect, you go. So if you want the typing aspect, you go Gyarados. If you just want like a flyer that will do well, Charizard is essentially it. Politoed, don't even use Politoed, just use Swampert. Heliolisk, normal, electric, Magnezone. Yeah, Magnezone makes the most sense. Basically, it's different movesets now, but the main electric is Ampharos, but so Ampharos or Magnezone I think are fine answers for Heliolisk. Again, there's so few electric in this meta that you can basically just change them with one another. This has a little more coverage with Grass Knot and stuff, but again, Grass Knot and Breaking Swipe on a Steel is not going to do anything either. So it'll do stuff on ground, which you cannot do with the Magnezone. So a little different there, but realistically the same sort of thing. Ninetales, I would just say go with Walrein. Yeah. Abomasnow is XL as well. So Aurorus or Walrein. I think that like they all play slightly different roles, but if you just want a pure ice like that, Walrein, Ninetales, Aurorus, all very similar. And they were all ranked very close at 1.2, but they've now changed a bit. But there's that. And then ASlash, I would say, is just going to be the same sort of thing. Yeah, Walrein's on here. It's also got steel options. So if you want sort of the steel options to wall some stuff, sure, you can replace it with a steel, but I would just use like Walrein. Defense Deoxys is just going to say go with like another fighter. No, it's saying it's more the... That's the thing. That's the thing. Defense Deoxys is a tricky one to replace too because it is so bulky, just like the Great League, right? You can replace it. I mean, you replace it with Metagam, but there's no just like pure replacement for the counter user, the bulk, and the moveset. So they're recommending other psychics here in terms of that, or the bulk that you're going to get with like Registeel or Stunfisk, or so there's not a pure replacement for. You can't just say plug in another fighter, plug in Machamp or something. Like it won't trade off like that. XL Clefable. Is there any other fairies in here? Weezing is XL. I need to get my Weezing. Weezing is so good. Florges, yeah. If you don't have a Weezing, so in terms of fairies, I would use Weezing would be my number one. Clefable should be pretty high at like number 2, and then for number 3, I would use either. I mean, Tapu's separate. I don't consider it a fairy. It doesn't play the same sort of. I mean, It is a fairy, but you know, it doesn't play the same role. Slurpuff or Florges would be my third fairy. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Slurpuff for 100% is XL. The only one not XL is Florges. So Florges is your other only fairy option if you don't have Clefable and you don't want to build an XL. And it's only slightly below too. Genesect, I don't even really see it. I want to try and use Pokemon that I actually see. Like Trevenant, you will see. It's not super excelled. And again, there's not a pure replacement for the ghost. They're going to recommend other ghosts. But is Gorgeist not? Maybe Gorgeist is not. Whoa, that was not spelled right at all. Let's just go to Ghost. Where does Gorgeist land on here? So the super is not excelled, but then you're getting to, there's such a difference between the Gorgeist with Hex and a Shadow Claw Trevenant. It's again the similar move, like almost exact same moveset. Hex, Shadow Ball, Seed Bomb, but the Shadow Claw and a bit of extra bulk makes it substantially different. If you're actually trying to replace Trevenant, I do think you maybe want to try and replace it with Gengar, even though it's not a 1-for-1, like you lose bulk and coverage on the secondary move. But in terms of like the fast move Shadow Claw plus like a hard hitting Shadow Ball, I think Gengar is your closest to Trevenant. But you do give up a lot of bulk in that trade-off. Tentacruel is one that I'm starting to see a ton of. A poison water. Nidoqueen is really one of the only other poisons in here, but it is excelled as well. So then they're giving me options for water. The poisons are very, very, very few and far between in this. Sneasler doesn't even act as a poison. Nidoqueen is the main one that actually has the poison jab associated with it. Wheezing, Toxicroak don't have the associated. Skuntank and Drapion. Skuntank and Drapion could be similar things. Poison jab users with coverage moves. So if you don't have, but both of those are XLs. Yeah. Both Skunk and Drapion are XL Pokemon. So there's unfortunately no, if you're looking at it from a poison perspective, which I think Tentacruel's main role is from a poison perspective, there really is no other non-XL poison jab, poison focus Pokemon like that. Muck, pure, the main Muck, not a Muck. Muck, Kanto Muck with poison jab, Thunder Punch, Dark Pulse. I actually think that's a good substitute. I would take that over Roserade or a Muck any day. It's just a regular, because it has the poison coverage, but it also has like Thunder Punch and Dark Pulse, which is actually very, very nice coverage moves for this meta. So you won't get the bulk that you're getting up here with this XL, but that is actually a very good replacement for those XL Pokemon. What else am I seeing a lot of? Talonflame is just Charizard. Lantern I'm not really seeing. Nidoqueen we just went over. Glaring Wheezing, you just go with one of the other fairies. Toxicroak, you just go with another fighter. Superior, I don't see a ton of Superiors. Superior, just replace it with Venusaur. Like some of these ones are just Superior, Meganium, Venusaur. They're all realistically interchangeable with just different secondary moves and bulk. So those are sort of obvious ones. Miltank I already went over, sort of based on Greedent and that. And that is basically it. Yeah, Galvantula just use like a Magnezone. So yeah, that's basically the XL and Legendary Pokemon in a nutshell. So again, it's tough to actually replace a lot of these just pure Pokemon because they have it's very, very difficult to replace the bulk that you get in the Ultra League with these XL Pokemon that you would not get like so much in the Great. Like it's easier to replace in the Great League because it's like you lose a little bit of bulk and stuff like that, but a lot of the meta in the Great League is not bulky either. There's like a few tanks, but the rest of them are just kind of like on the same level, just with different movesets. In Ultra League, everything is a tank, right? Between the Legendary XLs, they're all tanks. So to try and replace a lot of these Legendary XL with like secondary Pokemon, you are going down like 50, 60, 70 plus levels to replace them. So some of them are a little easier to replace, but some of them are just like unfortunately you need to build without them. And so what I'm going to do maybe next week is build non-XL, non-legendary Ultra League teams. Maybe I'll do that for my top videos tomorrow. I'll do a Great League video, or Friday whenever I post this. I'll do a Great League top teams, and then I'll do the non-XL, non-legendary Ultra League teams, so people have an idea for that. So stay tuned for that tomorrow, or Friday, whenever I post this. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.